What is good, guys? This is Mr. Love, Jenny Prenzelberg, whatever you want to call me, Dennis, and I'm going to bring you an updated version of my 2010 or 2011 or something guide on how to beat Oxide on all the tracks in Crash Team Racing in the time trial mode. So yeah, as a little introduction here, basically like 10 or 12 years or something back, I did this video, or the two-part video, where I beat Oxide on every track in Crash Team Racing because I had struggled as a kid and as a as a youth finding out or finding ways to beat Oxide because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it on every track, right? So I was like scouring the internet for like information on that or like YouTube on videos on that, and I found nothing. So I decided to do it myself. So I did this two-part video series, and I think it still gets like 600 views a month or something, which is ridiculous because like my YouTube channel, like I don't do anything with my YouTube channel except for uploading like proof video for Crash Team Racing or like speedrun stuff. So yeah, I decided to give this video an update where I also you got me in the cam and me describing like what to look out for and whatnot. So yeah, that's what we'll do now, and we will start with Crash Cove. So there we go, Crash Cove, first track in the game, one of the more difficult ones to beat Oxide on, if we're being quite honest here. Oxide has the same stats as Crash, Fake Crash, Komodo Joe, and Cortex. So he is like a 3 out of 3 on like all the stats, which is like the medium / all-rounder, like the Mario of Mario Karts, if you will. So not the best card model to be like the final boss of this game, right? And that tells you a lot about like how easy it in theory should be to beat Oxide here. So yeah. I decided to take Crash here on Crash Cove because I decided to, when there's a character that is like adjacent to a track, I wanna play the track with the character just to showcase that you can beat Oxide with any character on any track. So it doesn't really matter which character you choose, as long as you follow like the basic principles, like the golden principles of Crash Team Racing, which there are 2 of them. So the first principle is always, power slide. Always, like whenever you can, try to do a power slide, and also try to get them as full as possible. So there's this little red meter down there, it's called the turbo meter, and you want to basically have it as red as possible and as full as possible before you release it, because this way you will gain the most like additional speed out of it. The second principle is cornering, so driving around corners as closely as possible, because this is something that Oxide really doesn't pay attention to. So as long as you keep those basic principles in mind, it should be able for you to beat Oxide on every track pretty easily. So Crash Cove, as I said, one of the more difficult ones. I think we beat him by about a second, a little more than a second, and I drove like pretty sloppily. So yeah, it should be possible for you to do it like pretty easily as long as you follow these principles. I would recommend one of the speed characters, or the fatties as we call them. So these are Tropy, Dingo Dial, Tiny Tiger, and Papu Papu. Papu Papu being my favorite. They are a lot faster than Oxide is with their top speed, and you can, like, the cornering is pretty easy on this track, even with the big characters, or with the fatties, or the speed characters, whatever you want to call them, because the turns are super wide, so you can stay close to the wall while still power sliding with them, and you don't run into trouble, like, breaking out of your like cornering or whatnot. Should be pretty easy with them. And yeah, that's the first track. That's Crash Cove. See you in the next one, which is going to be Roost Tubes. And yeah, welcome to the video, everybody. Alright, for the next track we go on Roost Tubes. It is basically, it doesn't matter which character you use in order to beat Oxide. Oxide himself has the same specs as Crash and Fake Crash and Komodo Joe and Cortex, so he's the all-rounder character class, so to speak. So there's like no special stats to him or something. It's basically, it doesn't matter. That's why I'm taking Roo here, Ripperoo, whose home track this is. And yeah, Ripperoo is like not super good on this track because like in general he's a slow character, and slow characters are generally not recommended by the competitive community to play. Because yeah, they are so much slower than other characters, than Fast Panther and the fatties, as I call them. So Papu, Tiny, Dingo, what's his face, Tropy, and Yeah, those are the four fatties. So we have this shortcut here on the track, right? You can go behind the purple mushrooms. You don't gotta. It's not like necessary. The shortcut is pretty much faster than what Oxide is doing anyway, even if you go around the purple mushrooms. When you do this downhill and you turbo down the downhill, then you get something called speed ghost. That's like a competitive technique, a technique by better players, right, that they use. So when you go on a downhill and you get a turbo while going on a downhill, you can start jumping like rapidly at the bottom of the downhill in order to maintain the speed that you gain from the downhill plus the turbo, which is ridiculous speed sometimes, you know, and that's why it is recommended to do that. It's a little bit difficult to get the hang of it, and it's not necessary in order to beat Oxide, as you saw, right? I think I did it once. The other thing that I did, even with the slowest character, Ripperoo, right? I just power slided around the corners, got enough turbo, right? And, you know, got the little shortcut at the end, like all 3 laps, and that's it. Like, we beat him by, I think, about like 4 seconds or something. Wait a minute, let me see. Oh no, it was just 1 second. Okay, we beat him by like almost 2 seconds. Still, with the slowest character, pretty easy. Like, Roost Tubes is pretty easy. Alright, so see you on the next one. Alright, next up is Mystery Caves. This is nobody specific track, so I pick Fake Crash here. Just I want to show like that you can beat Oxide with all the characters on all the tracks. It doesn't matter which character. So yeah. I play the NTSC version, by the way, so I don't have access to Fast Panther. The NTSC-U version, that is. So this is a shortcut here, right? This is the one shortcut on Mystery Cave that exists, and it can be quite bad if you do it improperly. But if you do it right, you save like a second or two. So what you see me doing here is what you saw me do on Roost Tubes as well. I do the downhill boost, and then I get the Froggy. This also works uphill. So Froggy, which is the technique where you rapidly jump, it's basically done by holding down R1 and then rapidly pressing L1, right? So you have one button that buffers the jump all the time and the other button that you actively jump with. So you get basically 2 jump inputs for 1. You want to do this for the shortcut as well to get through there as quickly as possible, okay? One more important thing that I haven't talked about yet. I mean, I talked about power slides, right? And that your power slides are important. I talked about that on Crash Cove and Roost Tubes as well. You wanna do your power slides basically all the time, except when you can Froggy, because then you are on better speed and better trajectory. But the most important thing about the power slides, do you see the turbo meter down there? Down at the bottom right part of the screen, there's this vertical line that fills up whenever I slide, and it gets redder and redder, right? And you basically want to have it as full as possible most of the time, or almost all of the time. Unless it like fucks up your trajectory, then you are also allowed to, you know, release it before it's like super full. But the fuller it is, the more speed you get out of it. So this is like the optimal way to play the game. Just to keep that in mind, it's not necessary to beat Oxide on every track and to, like, you know, do the perfect power slides all the time. But keep that in mind. If you want to get better at the game, this is something that, you know, will make you keep your turbos for longer. It will make you faster in general, and playing with this in mind makes you just generally a better player. So we beat Oxide here by 7 seconds, just by taking the shortcut every lap, by froggying it, right? And also froggying the big downhill section after the second turtle jumps. So yeah, I think Mystery Cave's definitely one of the easier ones once you get those like very specific things down, but they are not too difficult, so don't worry about Mystery Caves. I think Crash Cove and Roost Tubes are much more difficult than them. So alright, here we go with Sewer Speedway, 4th track in the game, like in the adventure mode. I think 6th track on the time trial list or something. Want to get it out of the way early. It's one of the funnier tracks. Like, people love this track because it's so free flow and open. One thing you have no leeway on is getting this shortcut right here. So it's not too easy up until you get down like the specific timing of the jump. Another thing that you want to do is jump to this specific part here and land in a turbo boost. Oh well, you can get crushed by the barrel. Landing in that turbo boost there gained me nothing. I can show you on lap 2. Oh my god, I'm driving so bad. Usually I don't drive this with Dingo, but I decided to because I always, as a kid, thought that, you know, this was Dingo's home track, even though he has Dingo Canyon. But I don't know why I thought that, but I always did. So I want to beat like Oxide with all the characters on their home tracks for this video, and that's why I chose him. But he is the fastest character in the game alongside others. Alright, so if you do this, you see my pointer and the speedometer was at max for a short while. And I extended this by, you know, jumping all the time, froggying, we talked about this earlier. And yeah, this basically gave me a massive speed boost. Since I didn't get hit by the barrel, I saved more than 2.5 seconds here. Barely more than 2.5 seconds if we're... Alright. And getting the shortcut, alright. And this should be it. We should be good by now. For now. I think we cannot lose to Oxide anymore. Just want to, you know, be sure to throw in some more, like, slight turbos. Be sure to corner as good as you can. With Dingo, it's a little more difficult because he's one of the, like, fat characters that have, like, bad handling, but top speed. But yeah, we beat Oxide by what? By 8 seconds almost, or like 7.5 seconds. So yeah, as long as you get the shortcut every lap and make sure to not crash. I mean, we crashed once in a wall and got hit by the barrel and still beat him by like almost 8 seconds. So, you know, one of the easier tracks as soon as you get down the shortcut, which, you know, has a pretty specific timing window when it comes to the jump off. But it should be possible. You could play with another character if you want to have like a better handling, so you can aim at the spot that you want to jump at better. But it shouldn't be necessary. Pretty easy track, I would say, all in all. So yeah, see you on the next one. Coco Park should be one of the more difficult ones, judging by what we know already about like Oxide being pretty fairly. Matched against you, the better player than he is a CPU, on like smaller tracks where, you know, you have less leeway to fuck up. But on this track there is like a little like sort of shortcut that you really like, or like two little like sort of shortcuts that you want to utilize, that he basically never does. So, as we talked about on Crash Cove and Roost Tubes already, you want to stay as close to the inner part of the track as possible, right? So right here, you can jump over this and you gain so much time on Oxide because he is so slow in the corner there. Then here you can apply a little bit of froggy, and then here you can shortcut again over the grass. And Oxide is so far behind, you have no idea. I mean, look at it on the map. He is the blinky, the small blinky dot. Oh my god. Alright, I got it perfectly here. This is pretty difficult to hit like right. But if you do, you gain so much time because you also get a speed boost and whatnot. Alright, so yeah, that's it's fairly easy if you utilize those shortcuts, like those little like shortcuts through the grass. You will beat Oxide, no worries whatsoever. One thing that is most important is you gotta turbo boost through the grass, right, on the second one. And in order to be able to do that, you want to turn off rumble on your controller in the menu. It's ridiculous, but for some reason when you have rumble on your, like in your controller settings here in CTR, then you cannot turbo boost on like grass or like rough terrain. It is ridiculous. Anyway, next track is gonna be Tiger Temple. And there we go, Tiger Temple. What we talked about on Coco Park also applies to Tiger Temple big time. We can cut through the grass here and gain like massive time on Oxide. Just, you know, keep on jumping through the grass, basically. If you get like high jumps, it's better because you don't lose like speed when you're in the air, right? because you lose speed when you're on the grass if you don't like gain additional turbo boosts or anything. So if you're in the air, you don't lose that speed. So you want to get like high jumps, and from jumps you also get turbo boosts from landing. You get like these land boosts, these little land boosts. You don't get it here because it's not high enough of a jump, but I think from like a 0.66 on the jumpometer, on the bottom right hand side, the horizontal line that is now yellow, now is blue, basically keeps track of how high you are jumping. I don't know in what units this is measured, if it's supposed to be like centimeters or something, no idea, maybe inches, I don't know. But yeah, basically this track is pretty easy to beat Oxide on as long as you don't fuck up like big time. You can get hit by the tiki fire every once in a while. I think it could happen to you twice and you would still beat Oxide pretty handedly. So yeah, if you go over this patch of grass, as you saw, this gains like at least 2 to 3 seconds on Oxide because he's so slow going around the corners there. Yeah, or like going like wide on the corners. You want to, you know, go close on the corners as we were talking about earlier. On like all the other tracks, basically there's like a golden principle of CTR, cornering, you know, going as tightly as possible around the corners, and yeah, jump a little bit here, do your froggy stuff in order to keep you maintain your turbo boost that you got. Like jump it all the way over the finish line. This is a 33 lap. It's not bad for a Pura actually. And we beat Oxide by more than 10 seconds here. You know, we cut so much there with the grass shortcut. And it's not even the optimal way to do the grass shortcut. There is an even better way where you can like cut even more, because the way I do it, I go onto the track, right, and then I go back from the track around the corner. You could basically take the entirety of the grass if you get enough speed, and there's like methods to getting enough speed there in order to, and then get like the perfect like specific jumps like on the specific like bumps on the road in order to cross the entirety of the grass without losing speed. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous how good you can be on Tiger Temple. Papu's Pyramid. This one's a doozy because I'm taking Papu here. It's, I think, not the easiest to use a speed character on Papu's Pyramid because he has such bad handling that, you know, getting through the pyramid part, it requires you to go on a very specific line, and I don't know what that is right now because usually I play with Penta here. With Fast Panther from the NTSC and PAL version. Yeah, we barely keep up with Oxide, and he has a shortcut that he uses here that we also have to use, which is this one. And yeah, it's pretty difficult to hit as well, especially with Papu because he has such bad handling that you basically have a difficult time getting the right trajectory for the shortcut, and then, you know, you lose a lot of time if you bump into the walls here. But there is a big but here on Papu's Pyramid because there's a mega shortcut, which I'm going to show you right now. So you go here, you don't... Okay, alright, I can't show it to you right now, I messed up the other shortcut. There's a setup to it, right? Alright, we gotta go over here again. Don't lose our speed too much, and we are still behind Oxide. I think that's due to Papu. If we played any other character, we could basically gain a lot of time on Oxide on the pyramid right here, because we could, you know, drive it properly instead of bumping into the walls all the time. But the mega shortcut that I'm about to show you shaves off like, I think 7 seconds off the lap or something. You go over here, and then you go over here, and then you jump over here. And that's that. And you beat him. It saves like 6 seconds, alright, or 5.5. So yeah, basically what you want to do is you want to jump as late as possible in order to get on the wall there, and then you want to just, you know, you keep like X pressed for gas, and then you adjust like just ever so slightly to the right, but not over adjusting, just ever so slightly, so you keep track on this on the wall, and then as soon as you reach the finish line, you see the finish line to the right, you just jump over, you hold right, jump over there with your jump button, right? Hold right, jump over there, and then, you know, turn into the finish line, and you will have done this shortcut. I think Oxide should be beatable with like general strategies with all other characters like pretty easily, but I'm like a fairly experienced player, and I have difficulty beating him with Papu on Papu's Pyramid because the speed characters slow you down so much in the pyramid section. Yeah, so that's Papu's Pyramid for you. Dingo Canyon. I think this might be the most difficult one to beat Oxide on, because there's so little like leeway to fuck up as opposed to other tracks. But you want to take this shortcut basically at the beginning, and you want to take it at the beginning of every lap. In the first lap it doesn't make too much of a difference, but you're just, you know, getting used to it and whatnot, so it's not too bad to take it. It's basically the same, but you get more practice, you know, when you do it in the first lap as well. You want to take the right way. It's always faster than the left one. You want to stay as close to the inside here as possible, so as close to the cliffs, if you will. Alright, and getting through here without losing your speed. Boosting downhill twice here, and then get, you know, the froggies to maintain your speed ghost. We were talking about this on like almost every other track before this. Oh, we lost Sacred Fire, but it's not too bad. We're still in the lead. Oh my god, and we crashed and still in the lead, because we got such a huge advantage on Oxide before, for taking like this shortcut here, and also getting the speed ghost downhill here. That's basically the big like deciding factors that like set you apart from Oxide here. Getting your fire again. Ooh, a big mistake here in lap 2, but in lap 3, but still, we should be good here for beating Oxide. I think it's 137 if I'm not mistaken, and yeah, we still solidly beat him, even though we did massive mistakes here in lap 3. So yeah, that's Oxide on Dingo Canyon. So basically, you need solid driving when there's like this intersection. You need not intersection, like the split in the road. You need to take the right road. It's always a little bit faster than the left one. You need to take the shortcut in the beginning. You can take it in one like swoop of 3 mini turbos. With the speed characters, you get the perfect trajectory. I would recommend the speed characters for this track. And then when you go on the downhill, we see right here. No, we don't see right here. Sorry. When you go on the downhill, I talked about it. You really want to like take your time to do like 2 or 3 turbo boosts, like fill them up as full as possible without, you know, crashing. And when you go down there doing turbo boosts without crashing, then you start froggying in the like on the bottom of the downhill up until you reach the next uphill section. That will gain you like a second and a half or something on Oxide. So yeah, very, very much a preferable strategy in order to get Oxide here. I think we beat him by like 2 seconds. Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult track to beat Oxide on. And yeah, we did it by 2 seconds, so not too bad. Alright, this is Blizzard Bluff, again one of the tougher ones, just like Dingo Canyon. But Oxide has like 2 shortcuts that he doesn't use that we can utilize. For one was the very first one that we just saw. I recommend jumping through it instead of like power sliding or anything, because it has snow, and snow is kind of treated like grass, so you lose speed when you're on it. The shortcut Oxide uses, of course, but this one here he doesn't, and it saves a lot of time. It's like 2 seconds or something that you gain on him. I'm playing with Penta on the NTSC-U version, who is like one of the worst characters in the game. He's like the same as Pura and Polar and Ripperoo. The latter 2 we have already seen. In the PAL version and the NTSC-J version, he's actually the best character in the game. So don't get it twisted. If you see a video with Penta, it's most likely, oh my god, and we made it through anyway. So yeah, you have a little bit of leeway for this shortcut, but it's not super easy to perform, but it saves a lot of time over Oxide. Anyway, if you see a video of a good player playing Penta, it's most likely either PAL or NTSC-J version Penta, because NTSC-U Penta is shit. I'm just using him because I think this is his home track, and as I said, I want to play every character's home track to beat Oxide on. And we got the shortcut again, and Oxide is like 129 something, and yeah, we beat him easily here with those 2 shortcuts that he doesn't utilize. So yeah, that's that. See you on the next one. For Dragon Mines, it's a little bit of a doozy here. The track has a shortcut that Oxide doesn't utilize, so there we go. That's my English language working properly right there. He doesn't use it. It's going through the mine shaft right to the right-hand side here. It's pretty difficult to get a good angle on there, and also you got to be a little bit lucky concerning the RNG of the minecart, but you gain a lot of time over Oxide taking it. It's like, I think in like worst case scenario, it still saves like a second over him or something, because he also significantly slows down on the spiral section. The spiral section is pretty difficult to maneuver, so yeah, Oxide himself doesn't do it as well. I will show you right now. You can't brake in the spiral section because you will bump into the wall anyway, or you know, you get hit by the minecart and take the slow way anyway. But yeah, you could brake here, but you could also bump into the wall and then like complete it with a power slide out of the wall bump. It doesn't make a difference if you brake, like hit the brakes, or take the bumps into the walls. But yeah, Oxide almost caught up with us, but still he didn't quite, even though we got hit by the minecart and hit the wall several times, because he's also pretty bad in the spiral section. Let me see if we get a good shortcut this time. Yeah, this looks a lot better. And we got it. I bumped into the wall to the left there. You know, you could avoid that, but it doesn't matter for the Oxide Ghost. So yeah, don't jump over the finish line here, because then the lap won't finish. But you know, we beat Oxide by what, 5 seconds, and we bumped into the wall a couple of times. We didn't take the shortcut properly. We got hit by the minecart, I think, twice. So yeah, pretty easy to get Oxide here. Not too much of a difficulty spike. I think Blizzard Bluff is a lot harder than this one. Moving on, we have Polar Pass, one of the more interesting ones of the bunch, because as you can see on the left-hand side, there's almost a minute difference between the Oxide time and the world record on the track. This is because Oxide, of course, is like the way the developers intended the game to be played, but the community discovered certain shortcuts called mega shortcuts, like this one, that, you know, shove off almost like 10 seconds or something off the track. This shortcut is like, it's not recommended if you're like a beginner and just want to beat the Oxide Ghosts and whatnot, because it's super difficult to do. Full disclosure, I've had several attempts trying to, you know, record this segment here, just to get it once, to just showcase it to you. But yeah, this, you know, shoves off so much time of the lap. We got a 46 SL with a slow character, which is pretty good, I would say. But yeah, the way the track is intended to be played, you know, is more of like a 55, 54 lap, and this way you can definitely beat Oxide. Oxide is like, I think it's sitting at 249, and yeah, this is all the stuff that you would cut with the mega shortcut that I just showed you. There's also an easier way. It's called the boomerang, that you can do the shortcut. This is what the speedrun utilizes mostly, the any percent speedrun. But yeah, this shortcut definitely intended, and also Oxide takes it. So this is the only shortcut on the track that Oxide also takes. There's another shortcut right at the end, which is, I think, a little bit difficult to do with Polar, which is why I don't do it. You basically go to the left side there over the snow field and then jump as late as possible to cut another like second of the track. You can definitely get hit by the seals every once in a while. Like, Oxide is not super easy to beat, but over the course of the entire track, you know, you should gain some significant time with the stuff that we showed you already, or I showed you already, which is, you know, just good cornering, keeping your mini turbos, keeping the fire that you get from the turbo pads, and, you know, general like good driving, and maybe squeezing in a froggy or two when going downhill, and also taking this one shortcut over there that Oxide also takes. Then, you know, this one here, you know, then you shouldn't really have a problem beating Oxide here on this track. It's pretty easy, even if you don't take the Mega SC. Yeah, so I think that's about it for Polar Pass. Not much to talk about, as we said. Even without the mega shortcut, we got him like quite easily. Without the mega shortcut, you know, we would have had like 10 seconds more, which would have been like 2:46, and this is still like 3 seconds better than Oxide was. So just some solid driving. Definitely don't take Polar. Polar is such a slow character. I just took him because, you know, it's his track, and that's what we're doing here in this video, just to show you guys that you could theoretically do it with any character on any track. I would recommend like maybe Coco, Engine, or Pinstripe. Those are generally the best to do the time trials with, I feel like, especially on the more difficult tracks or on the more complex tracks, because they have pretty high speed, but also not the worst turn. So yeah, it works out pretty well for them. The acceleration stat doesn't really matter because it only matters if you are gaining speed, which you are doing right at the start, and then you never lose it basically. So, you know, acceleration stat not super important, but the max speed and the turn stat are what's important here. So yeah, that's Polar Pass. Moving on. All right, Tiny Arena. So this is a pretty weird one. Basically, in my feeling, if you are not playing Fast Penta, which is like, you know, the optimal character, if you have NTSC-U version, you won't be able to play Fast Penta anyway, so, you know, maybe you want to play like Coco or Engine here. Definitely not Tiny. I don't think it's like super good to play with one of the fatties here, because some of the turns will definitely make you bump the walls or hit the brakes. But Oxide will most likely be constantly on your toes. You can definitely, you know, beat him here, and it's not like super difficult, but since it's such a long track, it's pretty weird that, you know, you constantly have the threat of like fucking up something like not minor, but fucking up something that's, you know, a little more significant in terms of losing time, and then Oxide will just, you know, catch up to you, and then you'll be like, fuck man, how do I get him? Because, you know, how to play better than I already did. I tried to do everything like perfectly fine, and yeah, it's not super easy to get him here, but you know, it's a pretty free flow track. There's a lot of like jumping and whatnot involved. Through jumping, you get a lot of turbos because, you know, get the landing boosts and whatnot. So yeah, you should have around like I think 115 to 116 range laps, and this should be enough to beat Oxide, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think so. I think 115 laps should definitely be enough. If you have difficulty getting around the corners, which, you know, again, you should only have if you're playing one of the fat characters, like the speed characters, then you could always hit the brakes mid-air and then turn in the direction that you want to turn in, or that you want to turn to. For example, here, I, you know, turned mid-air, so I got what we call a U-turn, or like a mild U-turn. So, you know, you don't bump the walls and take a little bit of more of an optimal path, even though you sacrifice your speed for it. It doesn't really matter, because otherwise you would bump into the walls, and you don't want to do that either, because you will lose your speed for it as well. So, you know, just, you know, U-turn here a little, hit the brakes in the middle of the air, and hold like diagonally into the direction you want to drive in. Like, I will do the same thing here, you know, get around the corner a little better. Just small adjustments to you getting around the track a little bit better, and, you know, driving a little more of an optimal line. So we got a 111 here, which is, you know, I think nothing to write home about, but still more than enough to beat Oxide on this track. So yeah, as long as you do this and get around the track like properly and don't bump into too many walls, I think Oxide should be far behind you. Yeah, you see the Oxide is actually the second one down in the on the right hand side of the screen, bottom right corner. You see the minimap, and Oxide is like super far away, which is because he is actually like bumping, like crashing into walls and shit, because, you know, the AI is not too good. This is one of the ones where, you know, Oxide could be constantly on your toes if you're playing like a little bit messy, which could definitely happen, because not the easiest track to maneuver around, as I said, but, you know, a little more of the a little more on the like straightforward side of the spectrum, I would say, especially when it comes to those like last 7 tracks in the game, which are more like complicated than the first couple of tracks that we played. But, you know, Tiny Arena, pretty straightforward. We got Oxide here, and yeah, by I think about 10 seconds, right? Yeah, no, we beat him by 8 seconds. So yeah, not too difficult, but you know, beware that if you mess up like big time, Oxide will definitely catch up to you, and then you know, you gotta make it up by driving a little bit better and a little bit better over time. It's nothing like the other tracks where you can, you know, utilize a shortcut or like get a like downhill froggy where you can gain significant amounts of time. It's just little by little. Of course, as you can see on the left hand side of the screen, I put the world record, which is like an astonishing 139, and you're like, dude, that's like one lap, right? And that's almost right. You drive one lap and then you do a mega shortcut where you jump over a wall next to the finish line, and you can do this twice in a row in order to, you know, get 2 like 8-second or like 10-second laps. This is how this world record comes to be. But it's, I think, one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult shortcut in the game. So definitely do not advise this if you want to beat Oxide like the cheap way. It's a lot easier to get a little bit better on the track in order to beat him. You don't have to do this mega shortcut. It's super difficult. There's amazing videos out there of people who do it. There's also like in the speed run where you have items, right? You can do it with a nitro crate. You place a nitro crate at the wall and then you drive into the nitro crate and then you can jump over the wall. Still pretty difficult to perform, but a lot easier than it is in time trials without items. But yeah, I would definitely not recommend doing this for beating the Oxide Ghost, but still it is there, and you guys should know, because, you know, full disclosure, this game is a lot deeper than beating the Oxide Ghost. I just want to give you a little starting point here. So yeah, that's Tiny Arena. As I said, pretty straightforward, but not the easiest one. Moving on. We are on Engine Labs. This is my favorite track in the game. The first instance in the game where you meet one thing that we call USF, short for Ultimate Sacred Fire. It is the highest speed that you can gain in the game, and you get it by driving over a super turbo pad, which is this one here. This is a super turbo pad, and you see Oxide has nothing on us. As long as we get USF, we can always beat him, right? So this is the key to beating Oxide on this track, is getting both instances of USF, so getting the super turbo pad twice. The first one we already saw. The second one is coming up right around the corner. It is this one right here. Just jump here, then don't jump again. Just fall down, and you won't gain the falling turbo. And you know, that's how you keep USF up until the end of the lap. You can theoretically keep it even further if you have good reserves, which is something that, you know, I don't need to discuss right here. It's more of the nitty-gritty of the game. But here again, don't jump off it, just drive, and then, you know, don't gain any other form of turbo until you like absolutely have to. This turbo tunnel here you cannot avoid, so you lose USF as soon as you enter it, but you have utilized USF for like 2 to 3 seconds, which is a lot more than Oxide does, because Oxide doesn't get USF. He just drives over the turbo pad and I think jumps into the next part, so he doesn't, you know, utilize USF. Same here. You go over this ramp, you have USF, you jump over this hole if you want to, if you feel like cheeky like that. And then around here you lose USF again, and 47 laps, more than enough to beat Oxide. As I said, you can be a lot better on this track than I am right now. I'm just showcasing, you know, the so to speak, the easiest way to beat Oxide, and this would be, you know, get USF, drive it all the way to the tunnel, then in the tunnel you don't have it anymore, so don't care about that. Just, you know, get through the tunnel, maybe get a turbo or two. Make sure to not bump the walls, it's always bad, always a bad look. The track in general is pretty free flow, so, you know, feel free to knock yourself out on some mini turbos here and there, like some power slides and whatnot. Jump a little bit here. It's cool to jump around these. You want to get these corners as tight as possible, of course, to save time. And then, you know, another USF pad here. And there we go. Jump over the hole if you feel fancy. You don't gotta. You can also take another, like a different path if you want to. And there we go. 2:22. We beat Oxide by 18 seconds, and this is all because of the USF. I didn't drive like super good. I didn't drive optimally at all. I just, you know, felt free to take like the so to speak, the best line possible, utilizing USF. Didn't care for like any super fancy cornering and whatnot, so nothing too difficult here. Beat Oxide by 18 seconds easy, just using USF. So this is key to beating Oxide on Engine Labs, and yeah, that's gonna be it. Engine Labs, pretty easy track to beat Oxide on. Cortex Castle. Alright, this is a little more on the difficult side. It's not as difficult as Dingo Canyon or Crash Cove, if you ask me, but it's among like top 5, top 6 more difficult tracks to beat Oxide on. But here's a pretty easy trick, or not like easy, but something that you can definitely practice and then, you know, beat Oxide by a significant margin. And it's also USF, just like on Engine Labs that we just saw. Ultimate Sacred Fire is accessible on this track because there's a super turbo pad and it's right at the end of the track. So what you want to do is you want to get as much like mini turbos and like jump boosts and turbo pads as possible and not crash once up until you go onto the super turbo pad, which is this one right here. Don't jump off, just drive, don't jump. Let, you know, fall down, and then you have USF, as you can see, and you have it for a minute. You have it so long. Up until this ramp, you can keep USF and, you know, keep your advantage over Oxide, so to speak. Oxide has a, I think, 234, and we had a 47 lap in lap 1. So that tells you a lot about like how useful USF is in order to beat Oxide. And yeah, there we go. This is basically the entire the entire story to this track to beat Oxide on. You want to take this shortcut, of course, because it saves a lot of time. And then, you know, don't jump, just drive down it, and you have USF, and then, you know, drift around the corner. Don't release the drift boost. You can just drift around it, and now you lost USF. So you lose USF. You hear it by the sound of the engine. The sound of the engine is significantly higher when you have USF. It does like a bing instead of the brrr, you know. So as long as you hear the bing, you know, you're good, and you still have USF. As soon as you hear that the sound of the engine shifts again, you could start, you know, turbo sliding again in order to build up your next USF. So yeah, that's Cortex Castle. I drove like very not optimally. I didn't corner super good. I just, you know, drove the track like flawlessly in terms of not crashing, which is, you know, the least you could do, I think. But you don't need to utilize the USF here in order to beat Oxide. It's a lot harder though without, you know, utilizing USF. But you can see 221, we beat him by 13 seconds, and yeah, that's only because of USF. So keep in mind, get as many turbos as you can, don't crash, don't jump off the super turbo ramp in the end, just drive off it and you will fall, which doesn't constitute a jump boost that you would otherwise get. And then you hear the engine is like super loud, and it should still be super loud, and then, you know, like super like high pitched, and with this high pitched engine noise you drive around the corners. Basically you can, you know, press R1 in order to, and then the right, R1 and to the right, in order to drift around the corner. Just don't release the turbo like you would do in a with the mini turbo. Just drive around the corner, utilize the drifting thing, but never release the turbo, and keep USF as long as possible, and then you will beat Oxide in no time. It's pretty easy here. Just, you know, be disciplined, don't crash, and do a lot of turbos, and then you will get it. Hot Air Skyway is certainly the most interesting track in the game because it has so many shortcuts. It's ridiculous. So basically this is like the Rainbow Road of CTR, if you will. You can jump off the track at any point. There's like very few walls that, you know, prevent you from doing so. And this leads to a billion different shortcuts being discovered over the years. So what you want to do here is use one like super easy shortcut in order to beat Oxide every time. You only have to utilize it in one lap actually to do it, and this one right here. You skip so much of the track by doing so. Oxide is like so far behind you. He has like, I think, a 310 here on this track, and if you do it like this and only use this shortcut, you beat him by like at least 10 seconds. Even if you do it just once, because like a normal lap takes like, I think, around a minute, so it's still pretty easy to beat him either way. But if you utilize this shortcut, oh my god, my guy, you are having 53 laps, no pressure. So yeah. Another thing that I did, as you could see, I utilized the USF because there's also a super turbo pad. So that's the first ramp right here. This ramp is actually a super turbo pad, so don't jump, you know, just drive off of it. See, we are driving with USF, so that gains a lot of time over what Oxide does. Oh, I fell down the track, but it doesn't matter, it's Hot Air Skyway. This is our own ghost right there, competing with us. And jump over it again. You can also fall down here. It really doesn't matter because you are so far ahead of Oxide. See, Oxide is just at the beginning of the spiral section. And we are so far ahead of him. It's actually crazy. And yeah, this is going to be like one of the easier tracks once you master the shortcut, and it's really not that difficult. You basically turn around before it, right? So you are facing the wrong direction, if you will, and then you jump, like you do like a turbo slide. So you jump, slide to the left a little bit, and then you release the turbo while you're pressing the jump button again. You have done this before. This is like a very basic thing to do in this game. And then, you know, you jump to the left in order to get over the fence. Ooh, I was way too fast here. I didn't pause my USF. And, you know, drive to the left, jump here, jump over it and turn mid-air, and then, you know, you did it. And as I said, you can fall down the track so often. It doesn't matter. This shortcut makes Oxide so freaking easy. And, you know, even if you mess it up, you have like 1 minute laps, and this is still more than enough to beat him, because he has like a 310, so he is so slow opposed to you using this strategy. So this is the easiest way to beat Oxide here, in my opinion. And here we are on Oxide Station. I decided to go with Trophy on this one because, you know, we don't have access to Oxide, actually, so, you know, that's why I went with Trophy. To show Oxide who the real time trial master is, of course. Oxide Station, in case you were wondering, like, how difficult this track is opposed to the other tracks that we played so far, I think Oxide Station might be the easiest track to beat Oxide on out of all of the tracks, because even if you fuck up like almost everything, there's one trick that you can do every lap that saves like up to 15 seconds or something. It's this one. Just jump down here. It's super easy to do. Just at the height of this little like ramp-like corridor, just, you know, press jump, like hold left, and then you'll end up at a much further spot in the, on the track. It's super easy. So yeah, Oxide, honestly, pretty much a joke of a time trial here on this track. There is so many more tricks that you can do on this track. Oxide Station really is one of the more broken tracks. You can basically like ride these walls that are to the left and right hand side of me, in this section in particular, in the spiral section, in order to load some parts of the track that are not preloaded from the beginning, because there's always like only about 20% of the track loaded at a time. In order for, you know, the game to look as good as it does for as much of a like bad system as the PlayStation was. So the game, yeah, it looks a lot better than like similar games of a similar time. For example, like, you know, Mario Kart 64 is a lot worse when it comes to graphics and whatnot. And this is because like here we don't have the tracks preloaded from start to finish, but only like 20% or something of the track loaded. So you want to basically like touch specific loading zones in order to load up a further part of the track, and then you can jump down that further part of the track without triggering the mask taking you back on track. So yeah, this track pretty much broken. That's why like the time that we're going here for here is like a, I guess 240 ish, like 245 or something, and you know the time that the world record is of course a 140, as you can see on the left hand side, and that's because the exploits that we are using here for this very simple strategy to beat Oxide are, you know, far from what the world record strategy for this track looks like. It gets even more ridiculous considering like the single lap record, because you can basically trigger like the very last loading zone about this part here from the beginning, so you drive like a 16-second lap or something. So yeah, Oxide Station pretty much broken track. The strategy that I was showcasing here with the very simple jump in the middle of the track in order to skip the entire out of space section is key to beating Oxide very easily. You can, of course, as with any other track, can beat him like straight up without utilizing these shortcuts, but if you're looking for a way to beat Oxide and you know, achieve like all the like yellow and white stars in the time trial menu, this is your easy way to beat him. So yeah, see you on the last 2 tracks, the special tracks. Slide Coliseum. So this is also one of the easier ones, I would say. The interesting thing about Slide Coliseum is one of the 2 special tracks that are not part of the like adventure mode any % run. It has no turbo pads whatsoever, so you are just, you know, driving good, you know, so to speak. So everything that you practiced up until this point, doing the other tracks, like getting your slight boosts, getting them like the turbo meter as red as possible before you release the boost, and doing good cornering, you know, staying, you know, just around the corners, maybe cutting the grass a little bit here and there. Everything that you practice up until this point is basically like asked for here on this track, and it pays off so much because, you know, you don't have to be perfect with it. I'm driving like very like non-optimally right now, and still we are so far ahead of Oxide at this point. It's ridiculous because he is a joke on this track. Like, as for like the last couple of tracks, the last 4 tracks of the game or of the time trial challenge, they are all super easy. And yeah, I'm driving with fake crash here because there's no other way, you know, to there's no other character to this track. I guess fake crash is then. And we're gonna be finishing with Crash on Turbo Track, the last track of the game, because, you know, why not? We started out with him, we finished with him. I think that's fair. So yeah, Slide Coliseum, basically you can jump over all these tires and whatnot. You can also sneak in between some tires. So you see that the world record has like a lot lower time than the Oxide estimate, and that also than what we are going for here. That is because there is a possibility to sneak between almost every stack of tires in the track, and there's one specific one where there's this wall of tires that is keeping one part of the track and another part of the track apart from each other, where you can slip through. It's pretty difficult, but you can do it. I've done it in my PB as well. And yeah, that would definitely be a surefire way to beat Oxide. But, you know, just with like solid driving alone, we beat Oxide by 8 seconds. And it was like far from perfect. We were just driving solidly. So, you know, Slide Coliseum, also pretty easy one. A lot easier than like the likes of Crash Cove and Dingo Canyon. I always keep coming back to those because those are the really difficult tracks to beat them on, right? This track, far too complex for the developers to make you drive it perfectly enough to beat Oxide, and this really being a challenge, you know, so that's why they left a lot of leeway for you in there. Just as on the next track, which is going to be the last track, Turbo Track. So yeah, see you there. And the very last track, Turbo Track, as I said, pretty interesting one. So as opposed to Slide Coliseum, where there were no turbo pads whatsoever, on Turbo Track there's only super turbo pads. So every single one of those turbo pads gives you USF. Funny thing about that though, you will lose it pretty much instantaneously because all the floor is like lava, you know, all the floor is like grass and whatnot. So it slows you down significantly. Like everything on the floor is like all the floor, especially the grass, which is even worse, which is, you know, crazy to think about. But, you know, this is grass but on crack, so to speak. So yeah, this track is a pretty interesting one. Like the last idea they had, you know, before closing down development, looks like. And yeah, the key to beating Oxide here on this track and to this track in general is like memorizing a pattern that you wanna drive in, and then also mastering this turn right here. So what the community does here, like the CTR community, they do this thing called U-turn, where it's pretty difficult technique. In like of the basic techniques, it's the most difficult one. You basically combine the froggy, so the, you know, keeping down L1 and then rapidly pressing R1 in order to jump in the fastest way possible, but then also hitting the brake, but only when you're mid-air, you know, the square button, and then also hitting the diagonal direction that you want to go. So diagonal, like down and left, is where I want to go now in order to do the U-turn. And that's how the U-turn works, and this is how you get around these corners a lot better. Like this hairpin turn is like one of the worst instances of the game where you are forced to drive into the wall basically, and that's also what Oxide does. He just drives into the wall. He's like super bad at doing the U-turn because I don't think that the developers knew about the U-turn in the first place, you know. But yeah, that's that. So Oxide is pretty bad on this track. I think I beat him just by 15 seconds, and I drove like really, really bad here. And yeah, as long as you keep your pattern, you drive around the track, like aim for the same super turbo pads every single lap, and you will definitely, you know, beat him here. You could go for the U-turn in the hairpin turn, but you could also like drive around it slowly. Doesn't really matter which way you do it, as long as you keep your pattern on the track. It should be fairly easy to beat Oxide here. He's really like on the last like 4 tracks, he's so much of a joke, and he's like super easily beatable because these tracks are like more complex, and you know, there's a lot of leeway. Developers left you a lot of wiggle room in order to beat him because these tracks are pretty complex, so they wanted you, you know, to be able to adjust for that by, you know, just being a little more solid than on the other tracks, because like on Crash Cove and Dingo Canyon and whatnot, like these short tracks, there's not too much wiggle room to beat Oxide because these tracks are so short and concise that, you know, there's not too much that they expect you to do wrong there. But you can do a lot of wrong shit on like the last couple of tracks in the game, and this is what the developers accounted for here. So yeah, that's it. That's beating all the Oxide ghosts pretty easily. So I'm glad you liked the video. I do play Crash Team Racing on stream, twitch.tv/JennyPrenzelberg. And yeah, go leave me a follow and, you know, say thank you or something if you enjoyed the video. Bye bye.